uh, yes, what was the inspiration? When you live in a country that has been so, war torn, and we've lived, continuous wars, and luckily now we've succeeded in living, over 2 decades of peace after the Civil War. But unfortunately, uh, this peace sounds a bit apparent sometimes, because a few years ago there was some conflicts between two opposing political parties, and unfortunately these conflicts led people to take weapons again. And these were people that used to live together in the same building, in the same neighborhood. These are people that live that are all Lebanese, and they were tempted and they took weapons again. And I, facing this absurdity, you cannot help but want to talk about it. You cannot help but say, I want this to stop. This is completely absurd. We succeeded in living over 2 decades of peace. So we were clever enough to do this. How can we be stupid now and get into this again? And it happened that at that point I was also going to become a mother for the first time. And I think that it does change your perspective on things, and it does make you see the world in a different eye. And you think of this child, and you think of what kind of a world is this that is capable of exploding over hours, because it did happen over hours. It did develop over hours. And so I pictured him grown up, and what if he was now 18 or 19 years old, and he was tempted to take a weapon and do what the rest were doing? How far would I go as a mother to stop him? And it is this strength, and it is this will to go to extreme to stop a fight that gave me, the strength to write this film with my co-writers, of course. But it's a mother's will. It's a mother's will to say, we want peace. We just don't want to be in that situation anymore. And so this is what gives you the strength. This is what gives you the inspiration. It's something inside you that you cannot hold anymore, that you want to shout it out loud, and then it's a sort of a cry for help.
Were you influenced at all by the movies that came out maybe 15 years ago about the strife in Northern Ireland, where the mothers banded together and marched for peace as well? Those were very serious kind of movies.
Yes. No, I wasn't. No, it was really very, very personal as a start. But then, of course, when you start developing the story, you hear that there's been a story about this here, story about this there, and there's a lot of women that have tried something through history to stop their men from fighting. There has been a lot of examples. I heard something that happened a few weeks ago. I don't know where exactly, but I heard a story about women also trying to stop the men from fighting, or trying to take the weapons. So I think, this is only normal. This is only normal that we're always trying to hold our men and not to engage in a fight.
You came up with one solution was that the women import belly dancers from it's first of all, this village is so tiny and remote, and they have to walk along this narrow it's just you can't believe it when you see it. And that was actually where you filmed.
Yes.
There's no guardrails on the side of this bridge. They just walk along this thing where they can fall over into death.
Yeah.
How did you find this village?
It was hard to find the village. The bridge was another story. We created this bridge in special effects afterwards.
Beautiful bridge.
Yeah, we created the void and all this, and we made it look much more dangerous than what it was. It wasn't dangerous at all, actually. But yeah, to find the village, we shot in 3 different villages, and it was a hard task, because unfortunately, everywhere you have the invasion of concrete, and you have the invasion of big, huge, tall buildings. And it was hard to find a traditional place, because it's supposed to be a remote village. So you can't have big, modern, tall buildings in a village. So that was the hardest part. And then so we had to shoot in 3 different villages, and yeah.
You come up with rather interesting solutions. One of the women fakes a miracle with the Virgin Mary appearing to her and talking to her. We eventually have hash brownies mixed with sedatives so that the men will go to sleep and they can take the guns and bury them. We also have, as I said, these belly dancers that are brought in. They're kind of like exotic birds that are supposed to maybe stun the men into just submission.
The men, yes.
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 So it's very comedic, and the tone, as I mentioned earlier, switches. It goes from lyrical. At one point, I felt almost like we were seeing something like A Man and a Woman, the big '60s movie that just is so oozily romantic. And then there's this broad comedy, and then it's this tragedy. So, can you talk about that, mixing the tones and how you knew that you could keep skipping along and bringing the audience with you?
Of course, it was a risk, and I didn't know if it was going to work or not. It was just a gut feeling that led me to do this. Something inside that said,
Nadine, go ahead.
This is going to work, and you are going to make it work. Because I am also, life is not about one thing. It's not only drama. It's not only comedy. It's not. I like to make the viewer embark on an emotional journey. And for me, this is what films are all about. This is what I'm looking for when I'm watching a film. I don't go watch a story anymore. I like to be, how do you say, I like to have my senses wake up when I'm watching a film. I like to cry, laugh, wake up to certain things, get emotional, maybe try to become a better person. I want to get out of the movie theaters after stealing these 2 hours from my life and going to a movie theater. I want to get out of there a changed person somehow. Maybe it sounds too idealistic, but I want to believe that a film does change something in you sometimes. And so I like you as a viewer. It's not anymore about the story, but it's about human nature. It's about what we share as human beings. It's about our emotions, our state of mind, our reaction to certain things. And so comedy was important because the subject needed comedy. Sometimes humor can, when you laugh about your flaws, when you laugh about the things that are not going that right in yourself, it's the way to start the healing process, I think. And it does create this distance. And sometimes the situation, unfortunately, is so absurd, you cannot help but laugh about it.